on. Yeah, 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 yeah. So we can touch base on that. So what this is just a chart that I wanted to talk about on the low time frame signals, but we can go into this. So essentially, what I was looking for was I was looking for this bearish divergence, right, to come in there. So let's just go to a higher time frame. Um, I was looking for that bearish divergence to come in, which it did. So if we, sorry, let's just do this. So it came in there, right? And for me, that was a major top signal. So when we did break down, we broke down a few, like 20 days earlier than I expected. And that's why I still kind of was hopeful that we're going to reclaim that. But after it broke down, like a fairly decent amount of percentage in this area, for me, that was over. And I was looking for a dead cat bounce to around about this area there. And when we pushed past it, that's when I started to doubt my whole cycle view. But remember, this whole cycle view that I had came all the way from there. So this whole thing was pretty accurate, and until this dead cat bounce, in my opinion, and then it pushed higher. However, since the lows, I was looking for 105 my base and 118 to 130 as a probable outcome, target based. But I'm not a guy that always goes and tie price targets like this area, yeah. But it was for me probable. But it was probable for me over here. So when we reached like 105, 108, that was it for me when we broke down, and I was looking for that dead cat bounce, and we went higher. However, momentum kept going out. And if you look at most of your on-chain indicators and just your normal indicators, right, you would find momentum leaving the cycle all the way from there. And then we had the triple bearish divergence there. And now obviously that correction came in, which was pretty harsh, you know. But that's where we're going to come into the macro view, which I feel like this is the whole place where the cycle essentially changed. If you look at, well, let me just go back to SPX. Sorry, so if you go to, just give me a second,
Yeah, no
we're going to
worries.
touch base on all these things. So if you look at what the SPX did, right, and SMH, where I kind of messed that up, but anyway. So when I was looking at the cycles, including with equities, right, it also mirrored previous cycles near perfection. Just want to get to my, I'm a bit out of touch with the whole streaming thing.
No,
Right,
it's all
so
good. Me too.
so anyway, the cycles, if you can follow the cycles on the bottom that I've got going here for the tops, right, it played out near perfection every time, and you could see it like in semis and manufacturing, where momentum would leave. You could see the bearish divergence down there, where it would leave at a certain point in the cycle, and that's what's basically your danger sign, right? So when we had the Bitcoin doing the bearish divergence in February, March, and this was getting so close to a cycle top for me in equities, for me it was over. Something, however, kept bothering me. Why didn't Bitcoin dominance break down? That was always the one thing that I couldn't understand. So when equities eventually broke down, I was like, that confirmed it for me. Righto, I got it right. So the whole cycle did its thing for me, and bear market, here we go. And Bitcoin topped out for me. And the momentum that we got was just a complacency bounce. However, something kept bothering me, Bitcoin dominance. Why not Bitcoin dominance? And I said, during that time when we had this breakdown, and again, I was looking for the same thing. I was looking for a dead cat bounce over here, and we pushed actually higher. I was like, shit, okay, this is going to go. And then I did say, though, some place at the dead cat bounce that what you want to see is if you see this breakout there, it might get a pretty good V-shaped recovery like 2018-19, where we had this on equities. And that's exactly what happened. And this time, though, it didn't touch my bottom trend line. And that's also something that bothered me, right? So I went back to scratch essentially and looked at it from a price action point of view. I was like, okay, the cycles are starting to change. And even if you go to a higher time frame, right, you can see in a higher time frame, I'm going to mess this up, but we can obviously draw it in again. Even on a higher time frame, you can see the cycles did not complete its trend yet. So my lines are thick just for the stream. My lines are not this thick normally, guys. So anyway, I'll make it thinner again. So you can see essentially how the cycle is basically stretching out. And people, a lot of cycle analysis out there reckons, according to a cycle, that cycles can't change dynamically. Cycles do change dynamically. It's a basic principle of cycles. The best pioneers, the people that literally the pioneers of cycles, you can look in throughout history, mentioned this time and time and again. And if you look at the SPX over, like, let's say, long enough time frame, you will see that, let's say you pull it over 100 years, there's no way you can pull a 4-year cycle in this thing. There's no way you can pull 4-year cycles there and it all even works out. There's no way. So cycles repeat, and then they start changing dynamically because policies change, a lot of stuff changes. However, cycles is something that's fundamentally like earth-based. It's just attraction from one end to another end, like a pendulum swifts from one end to another end. So that's why you'll always get cycles. However, if you look at that, and the way I easily spot it is on trends with like oscillators, because you have an oscillator that oscillates between 0 and 1, you can easily see it on an oscillator instead of price action that's volatile and it goes like this and it's hard to spot it, you know. However, I'm digressing now a lot. The thing what I wanted to point out is more and more where it started to change, especially with us testing essentially the all-time highs of 2021. That's where it started to change. Your trend started to break. A lot started to act differently after a retest of your 2021 all-time highs. And then when you go back to Bitcoin with what we're having now, so if you go back to Bitcoin and you look at a similar thing, we're doing the exact same thing. We broke out with SPX, right? We went back down to test the 2021 all-time highs. And after 2021 all-time highs, from a pure price action structurally point of view, it went back up. Now, this is where the whole altcoin thing comes in that we talked about. I don't really want to jump back and forth too much before we get to the charts itself. Mm-hmm. But if you go look at Bitcoin dominance and you keep this in mind, and you keep in mind that the cycle might be stretching, because if you go, so another thing I just need to point out now quick. Like, let's say you've got an oscillator, right? Like this. And it reaches your top trends on a specific time frame, right? And it doesn't have the same confluence on a higher time frame. So if you go, let's say, to a higher time frame where the trend is running on a 26th day and a 22nd day, you will not find the same confluence on them. If you do find the same confluence on the previous cycles, right, then it's a major warning sign that you've got a broad base on multiple time frames that the cycle is stopping out. But if you have on the 2-week, like for example, again, right, it's stopping out on the 2-week, it's what that majority of the time means it's a local top, right? And that's exactly what we got essentially. So 2-week got it topped out, right? But if you go to your other trends where it's running on 26 day or 22 day or your monthly even, you'll find it didn't do the same thing. So it didn't top out yet, right? And that's argumentatively the point where you can make that the cycle is an extension of itself. And then you can go back to something like Bitcoin dominance. Just to quickly touch base on it, we can look at that. And anyway, I might have closed it by accident. So if you look at this though, the Ethereum over Bitcoin, and you look at Bitcoin dominance itself, just by aesthetically looking at this, just by looking at it, it's not hard to see that this, right, is much shorter than, let's say, this, right? And this is much shorter than this breakdown here until that happened. Like, can you see how long that is compared to the previous time? So if you look at, if you just look at it aesthetically and you look at the patterns and you look at your trend lines, which I've got on top here with Ethereum or Bitcoin, if you look at where the moving averages are starting to flip, it's only happening now. It's only happening now. Why is that? Then you think about all the other things we just talked about, with testing its 2021 all-time highs, with not topping out here yet. Then it's starting to paint a different kind of picture for you. Not only that, I think I didn't save it here, but I have it on my desktop from my Twitter, so just bear with me. I'm gonna just open that up quick. So if you go into, I just want to get that quick. I think I said that. So this is a chart. I didn't replicate this chart because we didn't have time today to do that, right? So this is a Bitcoin chart I made that essentially explains what I'm talking about now. So Bitcoin dominance is the one in orange. You can see the breakdown is only starting to happen now, whereby we probably get a complacency bounce, the same as what we get in every, or well, not in every, but in the previous cycle, in this orange area here, right? The trend was missed on that specific time frame where it's running on. Now, again, if you go to lower time frames, it did have a top trend touch. So argumentatively, yes, top. But if you look at higher time frames, no top. And then if you look at an important thing I wanted to point out here, even though you got your various divergence and it was a correction that came in, this is my macro indicator I made, which is basically showing you expansion and contraction. It's based on more than 10 to 12. I need to go see exactly how many metrics I pushed into it. But it's essentially all the leading indicators that you can imagine. It comes from CLI, it comes from PMI, it comes from the dollar index. It comes from every metric that I, over the years, basically could find that's anything in any leading economical way in front of GDP. So if you push that into one indicator, that's essentially what you're getting here in blue. And in every instance in the previous cycles, right, we went into contraction way before. It's seen as a leading indicator if you mix all that in a bunch. And essentially, we went into contraction months before Bitcoin topped out. And that's what I'm trying to show you with the red arrows. So with the purple, it's showing like when it came in, right? And then the contraction happens, and then only you top out. Contraction happens, top out. Contraction happens, tops out. What happened last year? This contraction came in 2024. I also looked at this and I was like, oh, okay, so it's over. But then straight after in 2025, expansion came in again, and it's still expanding. So this is the first time, if you look at not the first time, just the first time with Bitcoin. We can look at the same indicator on the stock market, but this is the first time in Bitcoin where in a cycle, apart now from COVID, right, where it went into contraction and went into expansion again, without essentially topping or bottoming out. So if you just look at this chart and you recognize that Bitcoin dominance hasn't broken down yet, that we went into expansion again after we went into contraction, and certain timeframes are not lining up with some of your indicators, then it's starting to paint a bigger picture for you. And then when you start looking at altcoins, you're like, okay, that's maybe why we never got our altcoin season, because Bitcoin dominance just hasn't broken down yet, obviously, but because the cycle never truly ended. Like a local top, like a mini cycle in a bigger cycle. So if you're an Elliott wave theory guy, I know they've got a wave count going.
Yeah, like
that
wave 4.
The fifth wave. Yeah. Now I'm not an Elliott wave kind of guy, but I'm an impulsive guy, and in the same sort of sense, it comes down to the same thing.
Yeah.
And so there's a valid thing going for us to recognize that. However,
yeah, honestly, if you go back to that chart, it looks a lot like elongated version or extended version of the 2012 2013 period, where those economic contraction indicators didn't fully reset, didn't fully top out, and then it went into like this blow off phase.
Yeah, so, there's some reminiscence definitely that can be seen from it.
Do you have any expectation right now for time length? Because you were pretty correct, throughout the cycle from 23 to 25.
Yeah. And in all honesty, no, because I still have a circular view, right? When the circular should top out. That's highly speculative, though, as well, for 2028. And argumentatively, you can say that the cycle is actually going to push up until that time. However, why I'm saying no is because I feel like the cycle has changed dynamically. So for me, it was possible to actually touch base on the cycles on exact time frames. Just not getting it every time I'm looking for it. Anyway, we'll pull this in again quick. Just go to 3-week time frame. That's my good time frame to go off. Do I have SMH? I don't have SMH here. Just bear with me quickly.
Yeah,
so if you do go off this, right, and what I've talked about in this chart, because I could time it with our tops in these cycles that we've had here, I was able to be accurate for the whole cycle since 2022. However, because it changed here with this touch base of the 2021 all-time highs, this that we're getting now, I can't make an accurate forecast. I wish I could, but I can't. I can only be more reactive now. So meaning I can't make a forecast that far out. I can't say like in 2024 I was already looking for April for stocks, and I can't do the same thing now. So the only thing I can do now though is look at what I've learned over the years to see when things starts to diverge and momentum is leaving the party. So if we look at, for example, what I'm trying to say is I still might be able to recognize it, but not so far ahead of time.
Yep.
So when you look at, for example, with my macro indicator again, so if you pull this one up on SPX, it's a little bit different than it would be on Bitcoin because it doesn't incorporate Bitcoin itself. This also includes the rate of change of the asset class itself, so it will differ slightly. However, if you look at the macro indicator, the expansion and contraction on the SPX, for example, only when it's reached this point in contraction all the way down and reached that point in contraction, then we top out every time, right? Now, obviously, you can argue when you're in a circular bear market that it goes back up again, sure, but it's not something I would risk. Right, so every time it does reach this level, then we've topped out in the past. So, for example, that was months before time. Months, like, for example, there was 6 months. So, if I follow, for example, this indicator, and let's say it goes down, and it crosses my line there, just for a stupid and simple, straightforward example, I probably will see this a couple of months before time. Before it tops out. Not only that, other things I've learned over the years, like I've actually brought it up here, the move index. So this is the inverted move, the move index. And if you bring up the move index, you see also divergences starts to happening via the stock market, and also months in advance. So if you, this is just one of many things I look at, but if you do look at this and I start getting bearish divergence, or not bearish divergence, but just a divergence from that in the stock market, then I'll know like this is a danger sign. Mix that with what we just talked about with my macro indicator, and I probably would hopefully be able to spot it a couple of months beforehand, but not the same way I made a forecast in 2023 saying April that time or whatever, sense. Yeah.
Do you still, since you pay attention to a lot of these macro correlations, do you still think the prior cycle kind of like rotational dynamics will hold up? So, like obviously stocks, S&P 500 have led and still have led, and then we eventually saw rotation to Bitcoin and Bitcoin to ETH and ETH to like high beta altcoins.
Yeah.
And I think typically the stock market actually topped out after Bitcoin.
Yes.
Do you still think all of those dynamics will hold up?
Yes.
For this, yeah.
Yeah, and I do. Sorry, I didn't mean to chip in there. I do. I know a lot of people will say ETFs and all that change it all, but no, for me, just purely based off risk on, risk off asset. So if you look at IWM, which I've got on here as well, though, because of the same thing with the 2021 all-time highs. I've been posting. You've seen more and more people now sharing this, but I posted on it as it was happening. This is with IWM, with small caps getting rotations. It it gets rotations after. So this is not performed as well as SPX and as the Dow Jones, for example, because it's higher risk. Now this is what something that people don't really comprehend these days, in my opinion, and they're thinking, oh, Bitcoin's lagging. It sucks now because it's nothing. Why it's showing weakness compared to other markets? It's not really. It's just a high beta risk asset. Even though Bitcoin's the safe haven in altcoins or in
Yeah.
crypto, it's still, if you look at it via stocks, a high risk beta. Now IWM is only starting to perform now with pushing up all-time highs now, right? But it was underperforming the stock market. But you will see IWM probably loses or rotates out first. The same with Bitcoin. So money might come in later into high risk beta assets, but it leaves it first.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just that risk on, risk off factor that I think a lot of people are missing, and it's also just my opinion. So just always know this. I'm not saying my opinion is truth and fact based, but that is how I've seen it in the charts in the past, and that's what makes sense. That's same with altcoins. Now, if Bitcoin, for example, gets long enough time to be in, it gets tailwinds, for example, and long enough for it to go up, then altcoin starts getting that rotation. And it's the same with stocks. So if stocks goes up long enough, right, then Bitcoin starts receiving that rotations. But come end of cycle and people start getting the jitters, or smart money at least, then you'll see momentum leave a high beta class first, like Bitcoin or like altcoins, for example. Compared to Bitcoin again, people need to look, or how I look at Bitcoin is the altcoin to stocks,
For
right? So
sure.
altcoin is the stocks to Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is for me the altcoin to stocks.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know there's a lot of people that think Bitcoin is a safe haven, but I like from any fundamental valuation standpoint, it's the most overvalued it's been, and I would treat it the same as you, like a extremely high beta, like
Yeah,
altcoins
look, it
and
doesn't. I'm
stocks.
not scaring anyone off in that sense. Like
You're bullish,
I'm
yeah,
very heavily, yeah, I'm very bullish for one, but I'm very heavily into altcoins myself.
yeah,
Not even Bitcoin. I'm like I'm a guy that takes massive risks. So I'm not saying, oh, don't take a risk on Bitcoin. I'm just saying, yeah, don't. For me, don't. I'm not a BTC maxi, even though I'm very bullish. I'm not a guy that says, oh, Bitcoin to the moon because Bitcoin is the best
yeah,
asset class in the world. So make your money, and for me, that I don't care what class it is, what asset it is. Make your money and get your money out of it. If you prefer your money in it, then yeah, do what makes you happy. But for me, it's just looking at something and classifying it as a high risk beta compared to something that's more, like gold. People say Bitcoin's like digital gold. For me, it's not. For me, when you look at the correlations, if you, for example, let me pull that up. Yeah. So if you look at this and people are like, oh, it's not correlated to the stock market anymore. No, it is. It's just they don't understand rotation. So if you go to 6 months, for example, which is a long enough time frame, and you flick it to line chart, and you overlay that with the SPX, for example, to just get that away. So can you see the directional turns though? So just see where it starts the turns, and you'll see the correlation. That's very bad because it's 6 months time frame. So TradingView doesn't really allow me to make it nice unless I pull something else for you guys, like a rectangle or something. But you can see the correlation is very strong. And pull this up to gold, and you'll see something completely different. Actually, the opposite. When gold starts rotating out, right, then Bitcoin performs again, because Bitcoin's a risk on class. It's not a risk off class. That's why you see this correlation with the stock market.
makes sense. Yeah, Gotcha.
Anyway.
So I was reading a comment in the chat. They told me to not interrupt you. My bad.
I was
guys.
interrupting you. I'm interrupting you, man. Sorry.
Oh no, I was. It's crazy to me because I was just pulling up on my screen the like Russell 2000 over S&P 500, and
Yep.
the last time it was this low and kind of reversed was like 1999, like before the 2000, 2001.com bubble,
Yep.
right before the most like vertical expansion.
Yeah, that's crazy if you look at it. I haven't actually looked at the 6 months on that.
It's also on a like TD9 on the 6 month time frame,
Oof.
which it,
Yeah, man, that's pretty crazy, eh? Yeah, which is bullish for which
extremely
is
bullish for like risk
massively
assets.
bullish for risk on. Yeah, man, I'm excited. Not only that, like something that obviously has a lot of people now excited. Not only me, because I kind of stopped talking about it for a while. I didn't pull it up. Yeah, is obviously the gold over copper ratio, which is known as the good luck ratio. And this is a very strong indication of economic factors. Well, you can debate about it, but it has been proven that it's been the case for some time, and which is real curious. Normally, if you could compare, like let's say copper to this, normally copper obviously goes down. Let me just get rid of my volume indicator there. Sorry.
You're good.
So you can see copper going down, right? When copper struggles against gold, and this time copper has been performing pretty well, while the copper and gold ratio has struggled, right? So this is pretty bullish. I believe what's going to happen here is a parabolic move like silver got. So when you look at the base, that this is building, this is a you see this pattern a lot in altcoins actually. Like before, some altcoins just turn into some massive parabolic move. This is like a pretty bullish base that gets formed here. Silver would have had the same thing. We can compare it if you want after this. But what this tells me is copper over gold is probably going to break out soon. It's bottoming out. As if you look at some indicators like the RSI can show it, but the lock MACD has been pretty good in showing the specific copper over gold ratio. If you go to the monthly time frame and I'm just going to get rid of the histogram, yeah. And if you pull your trends in, yeah, you can see a pretty good trend there. Is that monthly? Let me just make sure I'm good. I think it was the monthly. I might have chosen a different copper over gold ratio here, because I normally could find a more accurate trend line. However, I can look for it after. Just wanted to show you guys the principle though of it. So when this does break out, right? You can see it like, let's say on the RSI, yeah. So when this does break out, you would expect copper to perform heavily. So this just gives this backing, whereas in the past, when copper struggled against gold, it was a different environment essentially. Now you've got a point where copper has been performing slowly but surely, and it's about to break out against gold.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can argue gold might be the guy that's going to struggle, and that's why you get the breakout. However, when copper over gold does break out, when this ratio does break out, it's a very positive sign in manufacturing. That's why you see manufacturing also gearing up now to go up in expansion. So my indicator obviously incorporates PMI, and that's why you could see that expansion already happening. But when this breaks out, you'll see PMI go up. You'll see expansion in semiconductors, which we have, right? Semiconductors has just been massively performing, right? And this is a sign that the manufacturing part of the world is basically performing well, So if semiconductors and things like copper and things they use like in chips and electronics and so on starts performing really well, it's a sign of expansion, not contraction. So if you have copper over gold breaking out, most likely means that risk on is going to take a bid. Now, if you look at what we've been seeing in altcoins have been suffering just as long as copper over gold has been suffering, because it wasn't a true risk on environment. Bitcoin performed, yes. Stocks performed, yes. But IWM, like Russell, only started breaking out now. So whereas where that bear correction came in stocks, took Russell almost to the lows again. Almost the same as Ethereum, by the way. Like if we look at Ethereum took a massive hit as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Same thing, with risk on. But now that we keep getting to, and this is actually a good time to talk about that risk on factor with Ethereum taking this massive hit and Russell basically breaking all-time highs. If I go to this Ethereum chart, which is actually still blows me away, because I'm a guy that actually recognizes patterns pretty well, because I've been staring at charts for so long. It's probably not a good thing. This is one crazy fractal, and it's not credited to me. Normally I'm pretty good at these, but this one I saw from someone else on Twitter, and this is this blew me away when I saw it for one reason. I expected a V-shaped recovery on Ethereum back in February when we got to the lows here, and I drew. I don't have that chart saved now, but I drew almost the exact same outcome. So obviously not this major fractal outplay outcome, but just the recovery for a V-shape, almost exactly like this. And when I saw this fractal, I was like, oh my word, this blows me away, because just from a price action point of view, this made so much sense to me, that you've got this major line of support here, and that after this is tested, this can be seen as a deviation, that we will have that V-shaped recovery again, almost like we had back here. And then coincidentally, Netflix, and this is a fractal from 2004, I think, played out very much the same. And it just shows you again that people thinks it's impossible because of the 4-year cycle theory, without realizing the stuff that we've been talking now of the extension. And it's not just because now or because it fits my bias. It's because I can see the dynamic has changed, like we've been talking about now. However, though, I digress. If you look at this Netflix fractal, it's pretty cool to see, man. It's got me excited. Now, I always say don't just follow fractals just because they're fractal and they look the same. You always need to go look at the underlying strength and weakness. So if you go look at Ethereum and you go look at Netflix, for example, and you pull up your indicators with volume and momentum, and you can see it's either breaking trends in a positive manner or it's breaking down in a negative manner. But if it's breaking out trends, right, then the fractal has backing. Then it's like, okay, this is a real possibility. So if you throw your bias, even if you believe in the 4-year cycle theory, like if you believe in it, so be it. I don't have anything against you for believing it. But if you forget that for a minute or two, and you look at it from a price action standpoint of view, and you look at how price action can work out after it tests certain supports, then there's no reason for you to believe that it cannot make an all-time high before the end of the year. No reason. If you had a V-shaped recovery as fast as it did last year, you can most definitely have it again. And people would be like, no, you crazy, Rickus. Like a lot of people did tell me I'm crazy or whatnot when I said it, right? Until stocks did it.
Yeah,
now, stocks is obviously not Ethereum or Bitcoin. Obviously, it's not the same thing, right? But they were surprised that the stocks can have that major V recovery so quick. It shows you that people can still be shocked because they have certain biases that blinds them, and it makes them not see structure. It makes them. I'm going to pull this away because we talked about this now. It makes them not see, like, if you test a previous all-time high and you get a bounce off of it, it's bullish. It's not bearish. It's a bullish pattern. It's a bullish outcome. Now, if you look at what we've been having now on IWM, that's bullish. I talked about it when it was happening. I was like, if this thing bounces here, that's a bullish outcome. It's not rocket science. It's basics. It's 101. So what's Bitcoin doing? Bitcoin's doing the exact same thing, but people are like, nah. 4-year cycle, man, not a leg down. That's going to happen. So it's not impossible, definitely not. But as long as we're bouncing on this line, it's bullish. no matter what anyone wants to tell you. That's a bullish pattern. So and then obviously you've got all your confluences that we can talk about as well. But there's major confluence with this bounce here. Not to mention you do have some divergence. Some guy the other day wanted to argue with me that you don't have divergence, but he didn't really know what he was talking about. There's a very weak divergence going on there. You have a W pattern. You've got your weekly structure that broke out there, and technically when you go to basics of price action, that is I need to go to Bitcoin's chart itself so you guys can properly see, because that's too small. I can remove that because we know now what we're talking about. But this is if you break out there, that's bullish. It's like a mini range that you got there, and your weekly broke out.
Yeah, it seems pretty close. I mean, if Bitcoin follows here and breaks higher like next week, I mean, this could start accelerating like very
100% it could. However, like if you do look at your resistances that we are at now, so it could definitely, like if by closing the weekly in 2 days, and it closes where it's now, and it doesn't reject harder, let's just go to a bigger chart, because this is going to frustrate me. So let's just look at this real quick. So you see in the weekly, I've got the weekly chart here on the side there. When we had that test on momentum, you can see how the divergence came in there, even though it was weak on price action. The divergence was pretty good on your RSI itself. You had a good retest and you had continuation. That's when things started to change. But you had your rejection on your highs, and now you had a breakout and a retest with continuation. It's bullish. It's definitely not bearish, right? However, you have had these that I pointed out. That's been resistance the whole cycle essentially, which is not good. However, I've been talking about this for months now. This very outcome, that you will most likely will get a touch there, and you probably will get a breakdown before we continue back up. Now, what I would be looking for this not to hold true completely or start stressing is if we do have a trend that breaks down there, right? And then I will start stressing. I would not be afraid, because the weekly essentially broke out. The weekly is keeping me positive. The rejection here is valid because you have a strong resistance line. This is all resistance essentially, and you can expect that to be somewhat difficult to get past. Now, if you go to US dollar dominance, right, and we look at this quickly, this is a lot to digest, but it's quite. I try to make it as simple as I can, and just by putting in simple trend lines is the way you can understand it very easy by just looking at it, right? So what can you expect? I think Crypto Naba actually pointed out a chart. He actually nailed this whole move.
Yeah, he did.
This whole move from USD Tevin dominance, right? However, something that he pointed out that I agree upon is you can expect a retest essentially on this line, and it's just natural. It doesn't have to happen, but it's natural. It could happen. So if you have a retest on that line, a bearish retest, then what we just talked about in Bitcoin, right? You get something like we've been talking about. Yeah, you get a rejection now, but you get a retest. So you get a retest on your lower breakout level before you continue up. That is highly possible, and it technically is probable at this point in time. So if you do look at, let's just go back to this chart, right? So why am I expecting like a rejection more than, let's say, something more than a breakdown? It's because if you look at the weekly, just your weekly structure, and you can compare it to every impulse that we've had. And I chucked in the last bear market just for the people that wants to keep on comparing the last bear market to our bear market that we've had now, or like if you want to call it the bear market, right? Because of percentage-wise. Then even then, if you had this trend of this whole downward movement, if you had a breakout, right? This is also something that people need. This is why I always look at Tether dominance. It's honestly, I like the fact that not a lot of people look at this, but more people should, because it's not only Bitcoin gets money rotation, crypto gets money rotation. Ethereum, Litecoin, some other coins gets money rotations, and sometimes that happens before Bitcoin gets all all the rotation, right? Or the max rotation, if you will. So sometimes you can see the breakdown in dominance first before you see it in Bitcoin. That happened before it happened in Bitcoin, right? So at some points you would see the same thing. Some points would align perfectly, and some points the dominance would break down first. Like again, like we've had now, the close actually was pretty bearish for Tether dominance. We broke down. So we're only breaking out of the weekly structure now on Bitcoin, right? And depending on where we're going to close. So if we have a rejection and it keeps going down, then it might not close even or above the trend there. However, dominance already did, technically. So it's bullish because if you look at all previous times we've had our impulses, so every time we've had an impulse, right, it happened when dominance broke down, no matter what Bitcoin did. Bitcoin inevitably did. When Tether dominance broke down, Bitcoin took a little bit longer, but it broke out, right? And I think the same thing is happening here, obviously, just based on history. So because the structure is already bearish, the structure on this is bearish, but you can look for a bearish retest. So if you get a bearish retest, Bitcoin will naturally go test a lower level before we get continuation downwards. And if you want to say, like, this was a highly possibility for some time that you would get like a lower leg and you get bullish divergence, but not nearly as low as people were expecting, in my opinion. They were saying 40, now they're saying 50, right? 58.8 was always a good level to test. We did not really get it before we got continuation, and I started recognizing it when we started breaking trends. So not only that, if you were looking for this, and you can argue, okay, but we're going to get that little leg lower, not the major leg lower, get that bullish divergence, right? First of all, we did have slight divergence, especially if you put it Bitcoin over gold. Bitcoin over gold already got the divergence, which all previous times had confluence together, except for now. And then besides that fact, that this obviously broke out already. So we can't really compare it to the structure here, to getting that lower leg with bullish divergence, because we already broke down. That already broke down. However, nothing is impossible. You can always go back up. You can always do something. But if trends has shown us that every time this is broken down, it was inevitable for us to get the impulse. So this is bullish if you look at it the weekly. But if you look at the daily, yeah, rejection, the range high, resistance from previous lows, point of control level, for sure. So I just wouldn't be scared if we do break down. I would start being scared. I would start being scared, annoyed as well, if we start breaking our trends to the downside. But I'll take it from when that happens.
For sure.
Until then, the weekly is still very much bullish, so that is something that you can't ignore.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, I don't know. I think it's going to be an interesting week. I think, like, historically, it had, once the Russell 2000 has broken to do all-time highs like this, especially at this pace, it wasn't that long of a lag before the crypto market historically broke higher. I lean towards it breaking up, but we'll see. It's so hard on short-term time frames.
Yeah, but it's not like even if it's the probable outcome for it to retest, right? It doesn't have to. You won't always get a retest. 100% you won't always get a retest. There's many cases in these impulses that we didn't get a retest. So it's not something I would bet on myself, but it's something that I can't ignore. It's like, okay, you had resistance. So bearish at resistance, bullish at support, right?
Yeah.
But higher time frames overrule lower time frames. So yeah, you might be at resistance on lower time frames, but the higher time frame, the trend has already flipped. So retesting a minor lower level is nothing for me to really be concerned about. I can't be like, yeah, just straight off, we're going to break it now, unless we break it. So I need to be cautious at resistance, even though I don't think it's going to break support. if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It makes sense. I think that's a smart way to look at it. Can we check? I had one question for you on Bitcoin dominance, because I'm curious as to your perspective. I know a lot of people, a lot of the popular trading accounts that have been pretty accurate are bearish Bitcoin dominance, but not for like a major expansion in altcoins, right? Like a move down to like 50% or 45%. I don't think I don't see much expectation for a dramatic leg lower, kind of like we saw in 2021 or 2017, but I feel like that's what's most likely, and I'm curious as to what you think, like the magnitude of the drop in Bitcoin dominance is likely to be.
So if we look at the chart itself, right? I'm expecting personally a push on dominance again. It is obviously at resistance, so it doesn't have to happen. Let me just try and get this going. You can still hear me, and
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, sweet. So I'm expecting a push similar to what we had there, just because I expect Bitcoin to break out inevitably, like eventually, right? When Bitcoin does break out, I do expect the majority of attention to go to Bitcoin before it goes ultimately to altcoins. Now, altcoins, because altcoins took a massive beating, as we know, there's some coins that won't take much capital to move pretty hard, right? You've seen that already in some coins moving 200, 300%. Some people have been sharing some of those coins, right? So that will happen with a select few of coins, even if Bitcoin dominance goes up. However, the broad-based altcoins would probably only receive majority of capital rotation once it breaks down. So I'm expecting the push up until roughly 90K on Bitcoin. 90K is a very big psychological resistance level on Bitcoin. So when 90K gets taken back, a lot of these guys that missed the train on Bitcoin and sold their altcoins is going to be like, oh shit, I made a mistake. I want my altcoins back. Or I'm going to chase those investments, because retail, people like me and you, don't really move the market. However, smart money is going to do the same thing. They're going to see the investment opportunities. They're going to see that they can catch a lot of people again, because inevitably they will catch a lot of people. And then they'll push money into the higher risk betas once Bitcoin crosses, let's say, a threshold where all people are like talking super cycle again, right?
Yeah.
So that will most likely happen when Bitcoin reaches 90K. When that does happen, then I do believe Bitcoin dominance is going to drop down pretty hard. However, because we've been talking about this being elongated, like we can see here, compared to here, you're most likely looking at a more of a stretch. So you're looking at something that might drop as hard, but probably not as quick, right? And probably not as low, because you still have some trends in play. I haven't worked it out. I haven't gone and looked at it from a technical perspective, but you probably get a pretty darn strong breakdown, but probably not as low as there, or not as low as 2017, right? It probably does make a higher low.
Gotcha.
However, I do think it's going to break down pretty hard. So we'll see how that looks like. I can be wrong here as well. It might even make new lows. Reason why, right? If you go, so everyone just, before I do that, you can see this Ethereum Bitcoin pattern, right? This is pretty nuts. Just have a good look at that, because I'm going to remove it now. But that is so similar to this price to where we are. It's quite crazy when you look at Ethereum over Bitcoin. And Ethereum looks very bullish to me, including what we've been talking about, right? However, if you do take this away now, and we put, like, let's say the RSI on here, just bear with me, I'm gonna take those out, some of my personal stuff.
Very good.
Then I'm gonna invest this quickly. All right. This is a trend that's coming all the way from 2017. So now we're talking about, maybe making a lower high, right, on an inverse chart. So having this, right? So you probably get a strong really nice altcoin season, inevitably, like eventually, and then making a higher low or lower high. However, if you look at the trend that you've had here, you're getting a breakout from 2017. Argumentatively, this has potential to make new highs. And then it gets interesting. Because then if you look at things like Litecoin and XRP and coins, that's been consolidating since 2017, essentially.
Yeah.
Right? Breaking out.
For sure. Yeah.
There's no...
I mean, most people been lulled to sleep. Yeah, from these...
You know what I'm coming from? Like, this is... Yeah, so if you look at this massive consolidation, yeah, period, this makes sense for it to break out and make new highs. And then when you look at Bitcoin dominance, well, I've got too many charts open at the moment. Wowzers. If you do look at Bitcoin dominance, then that makes sense, like, for a breakout. Or like,
for sure,
let's say if you invert it, not to confuse people, to actually make complete new lows. So it's just, for me, it would be speculating.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So
my speculation, if Neighbor's chart plays out, which was like my original assumption from the beginning of the cycle, we just never got a move. It really depends on the magnitude and speed of the Bitcoin price rally. But if it is like in some sense a blow off, I do think the Litecoin story or narrative is going to be really strong because it should pass Bitcoin in terms of monetary demand. Who knows if people even pay attention to that? But I think if price is moving fast, the spotlight's on it finally at some point. That this narrative can almost end the whole Bitcoin maximalism story. If the move in Bitcoin is pretty vertical in a final leg, transaction fees will drive migration to Litecoin like they have every single time since 2017. And in that type of environment where you have another Litecoin is just a copy of Bitcoin basically with a different mining algorithm, it's the same value proposition. So that like one Bitcoin only story would look pretty silly if there's a replica chain that has higher levels of monetary demand. And I think it just needs a spotlight in that type of environment.
It's just a lot of this is speculation, though. So it's people's perception. So you're 100% correct with what you just said. So if Litecoin gets the spotlight somehow, so ETF approval or BlackRock gets it or something like that, then it's like, okay, these people are looking at these coins for these reasons, A, B, C, D, and then people are like, okay, yeah, well, boom, and then they'll probably be taken advantage of because the people that's gonna do that or push that narrative in the first place would probably have already accumulated. And if you look at the structure that we've been talking about, the accumulation has been going on for years. People ask me all the time, why am I bullish on Litecoin? That's why. It's been accumulating. It's consolidating for so long now that when something like that breaks out, that's bullish. It's the same with XRP. Back in the day, or like when we were talked about last time in 2024, like even in 2024, I saw some of the breakouts in XRP. I got the same amount of hate when it was at the lows. Popular people like Peter Brandt and a lot of people were dissing on XRP, saying XRP won't do this.
Yeah.
I don't even like XRP, man, but I like money. So I was like, this is bullish. This is going to be bullish, and it's been consolidating for so long. It's going to be good, and it had massive breakouts. Same with Litecoin. Yeah. So people are like, this is not going to. Litecoin's been struggling for so long because it's been struggling. That's why I'm bullish.
Yeah, exactly.
People don't really understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, it is that in combination with like I've always since I was like in college looked for like dominant narratives that could potentially be disrupted, and I know for sure at some point, maybe not this cycle, but in the longer term, if these cryptocurrencies actually become money, which I think the odds are improving given like the technological development, the ease of use through like integrating AI tools to accept cryptocurrency, and a lot of these things coming together eventually, like I think the market's going to realize that the story around Bitcoin is wrong. And if you disrupt like the most dominant narrative, then there's so many people that believed in Bitcoin only. I know it's kind of represented in the charts, right? So much of the price itself is just belief. But if that belief starts to crack and people are like, wait, I don't own I only have one position, it's in Bitcoin, but this other Bitcoin is showing that it has higher level of monetary demand, it can trigger a massive repricing.
It can, but it also depends on how Bitcoin cycle goes at the end of the day, right?
For sure, yeah. It's entirely dependent on...
Yeah, so if let's say you do reach at some point a circular end to the cycles, and there was not enough time for the narratives to fully settle within the altcoins, then the story might end differently than we expect.
Sure.
But
exactly.
I do believe that the opportunity is there. I am still heavily invested in Litecoin myself. However, before we actually get to Litecoin's chart, let's just talk quickly. The Bitcoin dominance was one aspect, but this is altcoin dominance. So I just wanted to point this out to the people as well. You're busy breaking out again, all the way from 2021 or 2022, essentially, right? Mm-hmm. We haven't had a altcoin season because this has been trending down all the way. So you've got your resistance rejections there, right? Last rejection was right there, and you can see that on the point of control. So what I mean, like with this level there, you can see that acting as resistance, and that's the same level that you have on your trend. Right, so you've got your rejection there, and now you're starting to break out of your trend. Inevitably, that normally front runs, momentum normally front runs, same as volume, front runs a certain level itself. So inevitably though, if this level does break, that's probably when you're going to see altcoins starting to fly. And it looks more and more like it's going to be the case not too long from now. And that is essentially what you can see in Bitcoin dominance and so on as well. Even if you get, like, let's say one more rejection, right? Or a rejection there at that point of control level. Just wanted to show you guys altcoin dominance is looking pretty bullish, right? So I don't really talk about altcoins at the moment on my Twitter feed or my X feed because I'm mainly focused in Bitcoin and the macro environment for now. Because as soon as I see the risk on betas gets the attention, then I'll start focusing on all of it. And I promise you guys I'll do a lot of charts and I'll talk about it a lot more when that time comes. I think me and you, Ern, should also revisit another chat once that happens, right?
Yeah, we should.
But for now, like, I need to focus on the macro aspect, and therefore I'm focusing more on the others as a whole as compared to a specific altcoin. Even though we do like talking about Litecoin on your channel, I will talk a lot of altcoins when this actually breaks, and you'll see me post on it.
Yeah, you should come back. I spent like the last, like I was telling you, like last year and a half, 2 years, building this 24/7 stream infrastructure. So whenever you want to join, once that happens, that would be great for you to come on again.
We'll do that. For sure, that sounds really good. And I don't know if you've got a specific time frame, but I do want to run through a few more charts with you guys.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I did put this on here and for all the viewers to read quickly, because also on Twitter, right, or the general view is that the Fed needs to print money for liquidity to go up. First of all, I personally believe the Fed follows, not leads. Right, that's also just my opinion, but that's proven for historic charts as well. However, let's put that aside. Let's just believe you need to believe that, or let's just say you believe that the Fed needs to print money for money to enter the system, and that's needed for us to actually get high risk bids, right? That's not needed, and that's why I put this on the dollar chart. If you look at the dollar itself, when the dollar breaks down, that's inevitably when M2 goes up, when liquidity goes up. And I wrote it out here on the screen for you guys, so it explains it as easy as I could. I probably could explain it a bit easier, but essentially, if you read that, you'll understand why when the dollar breaks down, then M2 goes up, right? It makes essentially so much more money flow into the system via carry trades in the world through different countries because they can buy more dollars. They can pay more, they can pay off more debt, and they can borrow more money. And then when they borrow more money, they push it into higher risk assets. The same with the US itself. So when the dollar, you'll find when the dollar breaks down, that M2 goes up. So the last couple of moves in the stock market, by the way, has been lockstep with the dollar. So inevitably, when the dollar breaks down, it's good for risk on, right? Then the global liquidity automatically goes up. And why I'm bringing that up is because you can see how this has been rejecting, or well, accepted, rejected, and now rejected. So on a higher time frame, right, the dollar is breaking down. It's not breaking out. And again, what we've been talking about, the cycle being a little bit different. Oh shit, I should not remove that. Okay. So when the cycle goes, when the cycle looks a bit different for us, it's because this whole area was also a little bit different. It's also elongated, with us basically breaking down now and retesting a bigger breakdown. And historically, Bitcoin goes parabolic, and altcoins starts going up only in the last phase of the dollar correction. Only in the last phase of the dollar correction. So
yeah, and even sometimes continues when it bounces. So.
A little bit, yeah. We can pull that up actually for people to see. So if you do look at that, so I hope everyone read that. Maybe I can move this just to the side, and we can bring it back up if we want to. So screw it. Okay, so if you look at that, right, and you see where it inevitably turned. Let's chuck this line on here, so you guys can see. All right. All right, Bitcoin. This is the only place in previous history where the dollar essentially was still not bottomed out fully. Oh, it's actually there where Bitcoin topped out a little bit earlier. But all the other times, the dollar essentially had a little bit room. It already went up a bit before it finally topped out. Yeah, that was pretty much lock and step, right? And then that was a little bit.
Yeah, crypto was so tiny back then, so dollar liquidity didn't even.
However, you can see the dollar reverse a little bit, and that would be a big warning sign as well. So let's say we do go down, and you do go down, and you go, and Bitcoin goes up, right? And you do go back up, then and we still go up on Bitcoin, then that will also be one of your warning signals. Be like, okay, well, pay attention, right? But we'll get to it when that comes. For now, with the dollar still being bearish, higher time frame, this all makes sense, right? This all makes perfect sense, and it also makes sense that we've had like something that's a little bit more stretched out.
For sure. Did your price targets change then since we've had this, like for Bitcoin itself? I know it was like 130, 140 originally, but since you've had like this mini bear market.
No, I don't. Like I could definitely see it make new all-time highs, but that's as far as my forecasting go. Yeah, I don't have any price targets for Bitcoin as it stands. I'm just looking for that all-time high.
For sure. Yeah, I think it's impossible. It's so highly speculative, but I would say that given the volatility contraction, the fact that sentiment dropped off and almost everyone assumed bear market, that positioning is thin, and it doesn't take much money. So given that it's lasted this long, if it starts to move higher here, I think the odds of like a higher magnitude move are better than it was if the move occurred like when we originally expected it to. Right?
Yeah. Yep. That it. Yeah, it's too hard for me to say, unfortunately. However, you can obviously use your fibs and so on to try and speculate on a specific price target, but previously. I had that because of previous trends, and because the trends, like I had my 105 to 118 target essentially, because of previous trends, and now that those trends are essentially broken, I can't say the whole cycle is different for me now in a certain sense. So for me, anything is possible at this point, but I will obviously, when I see my own signals flash, then I'll know it's time for me to get out. At what price target that will be, I don't know.
Yeah.
But when it flashes, then it doesn't matter where it is. Then I'm probably out of it.
For sure.
This is one more chart, just based. I'm focusing a lot on tether dominance, but it's pretty good to look at it for various reasons. And I just wanted to show again, to this certain extent, on how this is still also replicating this area that we've been talking about. Not only because it's biasly similar, it is technically on a structure based very similar as well. So if you look at Bitcoin dominance, it brings us to this area there, right? And you can see it tested our trend there, the same as it tested our trend there. So if we look at Bitcoin dominance being at a similar position as there and as there, then this is pretty bullish. And if you think it's similar to this area here, which it could be, and the people are looking for that leg. This is not the leg that everyone looked for, by the way. They're looking for it now suddenly, so they'll keep moving the targets up, but no matter. This is if you look at it from this point of view and you're looking for that, it already broke, like we talked about this trend here. So
yeah, this looks like more like a macro bottom than
yeah 100% looks more than that. So that's pretty bullish. We talked about the inverse move. We talked about this retest that we're seeing on Bitcoin now. We talked about the others dominance. That's so good. We talked about Bitcoin dominance. All right, just Litecoin to touch base on it real quick before we maybe move on to anything else. Litecoin, there's not much I can say about it apart from the structural damage that we got here is not good. I don't like that. But I do view it, because I'm bullish on Bitcoin dominance, right? I'm bearish technically, and bullish on altcoins. I do believe that this will turn into a deviation. Now, if you do pull in the trend from the wicks all the way back to 2018, this coincidentally hit our wick, right? And normally you will find wicks go for trends in massive breakdowns. And technically, with this breakdown we had here, we had the most fear and lowest score on fear and greed index in history. So it kind of makes sense that you had a trend touch, and that it would probably turn into something more like that and more like that. And coincidentally, again, it's the same time period that we've been looking on Bitcoin dominance, right? So it all just makes sense for this kind of to happen. And then if you look at if you do look at where we are on lower time frame, this is not a low time frame, by the way, this is weekly, but something that I always look for to know that there's a real probability that we're going to make new highs, or at least break these highs, right, is when your trend rejections that you've been having, right, breaks out. So you had your rejection, you had your rejections, and now we're on that line again. So yeah, can we reject because Bitcoin is at resistance now? Possibly, but inevitably, because it's just the way cycles work on oscillations, inevitably this is going to squeeze out of it. And then if it squeezes out of it, it might be now, then you'll find that this breaks out, even if it gets a retest, and which I don't think this will happen in such a time frame. I am looking for a sharp recovery on these coins. So when they do happen, inevitably I do think that this level will get broken, right? So you are at a level where Litecoin is at resistance, but it's a bullish structure. Like it's bottoming out. It bottomed out there, right? It's also putting the same W in that Bitcoin did, and it's at a point where you almost got the same weak divergence going. So if we go to line chart, right? Now it's not fully there, but you can still see momentum coming in where price doesn't show it as clear. So you can see your momentum coming in there, and you can see it's a little bit lower there. Like not low, but I mean like very close, right? To equal it, but a W. So when that happens and you get your trend breakout, then it's going to be bullish for this coin. But this structure you'll see on multiple coins. That's the point, you know. So when Bitcoin is looking and doing the things like that it is doing, most coins will look very much the same until Bitcoin hands over rotation, and until important levels are broken on specific coins, for example, right? Then you'll see some coins have massive breakouts and do its own thing. and then inevitably fall back again to what Bitcoin's doing, because it is also depending on what resistance and supports we have on specific coins. So just wanted to touch base. This is the only thing I can really talk about on Litecoin at this point in time. We have the trend touch on this, which is pretty good. You do have like a little W pattern going. You do have the trends going. That's now very ugly, but you get what I'm saying. So so that's pretty bullish for Litecoin against the dollar at the moment. Even though I do view this breakdown as not good. I did not like seeing it, but I do believe it will be a deviation.
Well, it's crazy how oversold. I know you pay attention to our side quite a bit. It was like the lowest reading on multiple higher time frames, almost like hidden bullish divergence from a few years back on like the 2 week, 3 week. It's just insane to me.
Yeah, it is. Altcoins just took a massive beating, man, and I do think it was almost needed in the cycle. You do definitely have your trend touches on bottoms. If this is not a bottom, then I don't know what it is. You know, this is pretty bullish. If I look at it again, you know, if you look at your trend on the bottom there and you look at your trend there, you can't really look at it much differently. This is a very good entry discount, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I always look at the fundamental stuff, even though most people say it's worthless. Just from a long-term perspective, I do think that permissionless money has pretty high odds of being adopted. And when I was looking at this, like breaking down at this point to like $50 or even below $50, it was cheaper from a fundamental point in that recent breakdown than it ever was in its history, even at $1 in 2015. Like from a pure like network activity to price standpoint. That's what's crazy to me is I know all of the stuff is just looked at as speculation and it correlates to one in these massive breakdowns. But like in my opinion, if these monetary networks eventually grow to the levels I think are possible, then like in hindsight this will look like one of the cheapest discounts ever. It still feels like in crypto, like after the .com bubble or, early tech stuff, that everything correlates to one, or like Amazon sold off to super cheap prices along with everything else. And even though its margins and revenue were increasing rapidly, or like the price kept going down and eventually offered like long-term investors crazy returns.
Yeah, for sure. I think opportunity needs to be taken when it's, when you see it, because I think we're coming to an end of a circular cycle. I do think that what we get now, if you are bullish on crypto, right? I personally, a lot of people will probably start hating me after 2 years or so on, because I'm going to probably be pretty bearish when the time comes, So when I do view the circular to end, then I think it's going to be pretty bad, and therefore I do think the opportunities that's coming our way now will probably be the last of that kind of opportunities, that kind of discounts, right?
Sure.
So what happens after, I don't know, but I do view what I see now as an opportunity that I don't believe will come again. So it doesn't mean like people to FOMO in. Do you have resistances now that we've been talking about? Break that we've been talking about, you're probably in a good spot. However, the discounts that we've been seeing is pretty good, right? The altcoins has been beaten down to death. Like people don't believe in them anymore. They don't believe altcoin season can happen anymore. They don't, everything is different and blah blah blah. But the opportunity is there, and when people don't want it, that's when you should want it, right? So when people really want it, and then that's probably the time that you are going to want to sell it. So
exactly. You still
one thing we didn't touch base.
Yeah, go ahead. I was gonna jump in, but
no, go, all good. And I don't have to touch base on all these things. I just wanted to talk about a few of them, but we can talk about it at some other point again. I don't want to.
Oh no, it's okay. Yeah, go through yours. I think
audience.
No, everyone wants to hear what you're saying. They're telling me to shut up. So go. Let us know what you have here.
All right, now, but I'm almost done anyway, and like I like talking about this stuff, and I wish I could show everything and then talk about a lot of macro aspects as well, but it's gonna take hours and hours at the end of the day, and
Mm-hmm.
too many metrics. However, this Bitcoin and gold, I just wanted to show the people as well. So like this Bitcoin over gold oscillator. So this is not the RSI. This is something else I use, which is similar to the RSI. However, this is shown every time basically Bitcoin's bottomed out against gold. And in the past, the only place that you basically got another leg lower if you wanted, and it wasn't that majorly lower, was that point in 2022. So just for example, again, that people that thinks like a massive leg lower is coming in, you're taking a massive risk, in my opinion, thinking that a major leg lower is coming in when there's so many things in staring you in the face that's showing us that Bitcoin is bottoming out, not only against gold but against the stock market, against majority of the asset classes out there. And this is an old chart, by the way, so it's gone up now a fair bit. Bitcoin against gold. So this is just looking at stuff. People need to sometimes look at it a bit deeper. If you're struggling to find the trend, or you're struggling to find a pattern, or moving average, or something that hasn't flipped for you, just go look a little bit deeper and cross assets, because the dollar can fool a lot of people, man. The dollar has been manipulated so much the last couple of years because of the wars and whatnot, that if you just measure it up against any asset class different than the dollar, then you'll see a different pattern sometimes. That's very closely correlated, obviously, because it will always be. But it's stuff that you can see. Then, this is what I've been missing. Oh, okay, there is actually a bullish divergence. So I just want to say Bitcoin over gold looks pretty darn good. This Bitcoin dominance, Bitcoin over Ethereum. I just wanted to show the same thing with the elongated cycle. Like, you can see the same pattern essentially if you don't look at the volatility that we've been having there compared to there, but stretched out. That's why I drew that arrows in. Same kind of thing, same kind of deal we talked about, same kind of bounce that we've had there on the purple. And then just on the stock market again, the Dow Jones, every time it's tested basically its all-time highs, which is done coincidentally from back in 2015, tested it, went back up to do massive gains, tested it, massive gains again, and it's following this channel essentially so far. So I'm not saying it's going to go up to that channel, but it's still bullish, right? And yeah, anyway, I think that is it all. Please go ahead and jump in, and sorry for keeping everyone's time.
Oh no, thanks.
Next time I'll show a bit of different metrics.
Yeah, I appreciate it. That was really good. I was going to ask you about it was about you mentioned that you think whenever this tops out that it'll be pretty bad. And
yeah,
I have the same view, but from a different perspective, because I want to know, like, in terms of, you think this is like, as you said, circular cycle, the end of. Do you see this as like the end of the cycle that began in like the very start of Bitcoin's inception, or
yes, yeah?
Because I kind of think we're going to transition out of this casino phase. I just think from every single fundamental valuation metric, this might be like the biggest bubble on Earth. I can see all the narratives, at least the mainstream ones that are presented on TV, financial media, even on crypto Twitter, are. I can just tell like 99% of people don't know what they're buying. And it's mainly like, selling narratives. And I know that can't last. It's gotten so extreme, but if we do see like, one crazy move, I don't see how there's any way that you can have another, just like short bear market and then recovery, push this asset class to new all-time highs, into like $5-10 trillion with just selling like snake oil type stuff. But what's your like technical view on how that likely looks?
So main reason why I believe it will go into a circular cycle, circular bear cycle, is just the very reason. You could be right, like 100%, and that'd be so amazing to see, right? But if you do look at what we've been talking about from when Bitcoin started. So that's why I pulled up this Dow Jones chart, right? So if you pull up Bitcoin and it's basically, Satoshi knew exactly what he was doing when he released this coin, obviously. So it released into a circular bear market. Now, technically, the circular bear market only started when it broke out, all right? So from that section there, that's our circular bear market that we've been in. But if you look at the low, 2008 essentially was the low for all this, and then it started. So you essentially have, as people know, Bitcoin cycles. They're called cyclical cycles because they're more on a business cycle time frame, right? But you got essentially bigger cycles, which we call circular cycles. So if you've got a circular cycle, sorry, how the hell did I do just that now? Kind of messed that up, didn't I? So if you look at, this is my chart from 2022, I think. So just bear with me here. But if you look at any circular cycle that we've had in the past, so I'm just gonna remove all this. All right. So if you do have your circular cycle going for a fair bit of time, it's because it's a cycle, just as you've got your cyclical cycles, right? Sorry, I might be repeating myself because I'm thinking while I'm talking. This is essentially the same thing, right? Just on a bigger time frame, right? So you've got your bigger cycles, you've got your small cycles in a big cycle, and that big cycle is a circular cycle. And inevitably, because you've got a big cycle running, that cycle still needs to oscillate. The big cycle still needs to oscillate. Now, the time might be different, like we just talked about dynamically, but it still needs to oscillate. This has been ongoing now with the Dow Jones since 2008. And historically, if you look at our cycles, they differ. This one differed 4 years compared to the one in the 60s, right? But it was very, very close, essentially. And then you get your circular bear market period. Circular bear market. It will also change. This whole thing will be a cycle within itself, and this whole thing will change, right? If you go back to the 1600s, I don't have that chart in front of me. Trading doesn't allow me. I'll have to go pull that up again. I have data going back to the 1600s. It looked different, obviously, yeah, to what we've been having here. But if you do view the last 100 years of data, there's enough evidence, and I've used multiple cycle analysis to basically analyze the circular cycles, right? This is definitely one cycle, and a second cycle, and a third cycle. And so this is our third circular cycle, and you've had a certain thing going on. That's why you'll see so many comparisons and replicas from the 90s and from the 70s and 60s, because to a certain degree, price structure is doing the exact same thing. So what I'm trying to say is this is going to reach its end as well from a circular perspective, and probably just enter another circular bear market. I don't know how bad it would look. Could it look like something like this? Probably, but that would be pretty bad for the world. Most likely looks more like a 70s type of circular bear market. However, that will happen in my opinion. Now, come to Bitcoin. Could it do something else, or altcoins and do something? Yes, it could definitely, because gold is still different from Bitcoin. However, if you do throw Bitcoin over the circular cycle with the stock market, then it's been running on a circular market for as long as the Dow Jones have. And not only that, it's been correlated very strongly with it, as we've discussed. So because the correlation that's so strong with the stock market, and because it's been in a circular market since existence, I do not think that this is going to be a major breakout inevitably. I do believe that will happen at some point in time, but we probably get a circular bear market before that, before it goes, before it makes some sort of new high, a new paradigm shift. Now, that is just my opinion based on what I just talked about, based on circular cycles, right? And based on when Bitcoin got established and how long this has been in a cycle for, before this goes into something different. Now, it could break out, and you're 100% correct. Like with everything that's happening with AI, with Doge might go to bloody Mars with Elon Musk. I don't know. There's a lot of things that might happen that could, but at the same point, in the same time, there might be the other side of the coin.
Oh yeah, no,
There
I
might be
agree
something.
with you. I think even if monetary adoption expands, like it has to go up so much to support Bitcoin's price. I don't think there's any way that it happens, and I think we will have one of the longest drawn out bear markets, and then this, if it actually gets monetized, I think it's going to be a real struggle with governments that are going through financing issues, and I think
Yeah,
like very very volatile. It's supported right now because it's a speculative game, but
yeah,
if it turns into a threat, I think the whole thing changes.
yeah. But that's also, so how does so just on the topic, right? So how does circular cycles normally end? Circular cycles normally end pretty well. Um, that was not the best case, but circular cycles normally ends pretty well, right? So how do you catch the most people now at this point in time? It's by giving them something that they don't expect. For one, like altcoins that say just going up so much that people think it's going to go up forever again, right?
Mm-hmm.
In what I'm trying to say is, I believe because we're coming to the end of the circular cycle, we'll see something magnificent in altcoins. So much so, or in crypto, so much so that it would make people completely flip the script and believe
Oh, for sure.
that this is going to be, something else, something different, just to inevitably catch the majority offside once again. Like the whole halving cycle that back in 2022, when I said I believe all-time high before the halving, is still what people don't really know about me. That thesis, or that thought process is still going in my mind. People think that we got this correction, right? That they got it right with the 4-year cycle.
Yeah.
Whereas, in my opinion, they already got it wrong. They're still getting it wrong, in my opinion, because the halving, it first of all, it didn't do what they thought it was going to do. Now it's testing a 2021 all-time high that I've been talking about, and then when it goes up, when this point, what I believe, when it goes up with expansion, right, is still like a following up factor of what I believed in 2022 to a certain degree, because I believe that the sentiment, that people's vision, people's thought about the markets and the cyclical cycles has gone so pear-shaped to a certain direction that smart money being involved knows exactly what to do. They know exactly how to make the most money out of people like us, but about retail, and they're getting it right. They're fooling the majority of people. So now what happened? The Bitcoin made an all-time high before halving. No one expected it, righto. Now, because it topped out in October, people think they got it right. Whereas the bigger plan, in my opinion, is again to show them, nope, that's not what's happening. And then they're going to feel like, oh, something else is happening, and it's a new paradigm shift. Money is going to go, it's going to go up forever, in a sense, not forever in a sense, but they're going to, you'll see, like my forecast is basically that the business cycle, PMI cycle, manufacturing cycle will be the next popular thing again. Like in a year's time, everyone will be like Raoul Pol is saying everything,
Oh
the
yeah.
banana zone and all this, and everyone's going to look at the same things that I'm looking at, but they're going to be like, this is gonna continue going up, just for them to be caught out again, just like M2 caught out majority of people in 2025, right? People don't really get the tail and headwinds. It's just tail and headwinds. It still has supports, it still has resistances, and you still have a group out there that controls it all, that controls the money, and they look at how people's positioned, and how people's positioning makes a big difference. Now people think that they just all gonna go buy October and make a shit ton of money with smart money out there. Smart money don't want you to make money. There's that I don't know how this concept is not really understood by the masses. But again, I could be wrong. It's just this whole view and cycle that we've been talking about. Yeah, I think it ends with a bang. Now I don't want to sound like David Hunter with a blow off
Yeah,
top and whatnot,
yeah.
but it probably is some sort of blow off top in a certain degree,
Well, it
right?
is
But I
typically
definitely,
what has happened at the end of these, longer term
yeah,
cycles.
yeah. And if you look at Bitcoin dominance that we talked about earlier, that hasn't broken down yet, it all kind of paints a picture that is somehow just ignored now because of the 4-year cycle. All of this
Yeah,
is just getting thrown out the door. People forget, like, testing previous all-time highs is bullish. People forget that Bitcoin dominance hasn't broken down yet. It's like, how do you just forget this? I made that same mistake in 2025, and it bothered me. It bothered me. Why doesn't Bitcoin dominance break down? Until you go and look at it a bit deep, and you're like, oh, okay, well, now it kind of makes sense. So yeah.
yeah.
Anyway,
In hindsight, does make sense. Yeah, I mean, like you've had your thesis and kind of stuck to it. Like we all have our own ways of understanding markets and participating, but
yep,
yeah, you kind of have to take a view and be confident in it based on your own analysis and let it play out. Like I haven't changed my view since 2022, 2023. Um,
yeah,
and so I'm going to let it play out regardless. I think there's enough data like you're showing in the charts and to support that even though this has been like delayed or whatever, or we had a mini bear market within a
yeah,
larger bull market,
yep,
it's still pointing to the idea that this is going to become correct. And in sentiment, I think that even I rely less on charts and more on sentiment. And it feels like
yeah,
throughout this whole, like, it's such a small niche of like people on X, like even within that small niche, most people were bearish. There's some people becoming bullish now, but
yeah,
I'm just waiting to see like broader interest because if you look at search trends on Google, if you look at any like social or public metric stats, like crypto, any interest in Bitcoin or crypto in general never really even got close to all-time highs. Even Bitcoin going to like 120K, breaking 100K, there was just not that much excitement.
yeah.
And so
Yeah, but a big reason for that is like the altcoin exposure. Like a lot of,
yeah,
but
exactly.
dominantly people's been in altcoin exposed, like we talked about in the start of the conversation, right? So everyone's just been beaten down. They don't get excited about Bitcoin because they didn't really invest in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
However, everyone should get excited about Bitcoin because Bitcoin still steers the train. So if Bitcoin goes up, inevitably we will, I know that hasn't been the factor for the last 4 or 5 years. However, we're seeing the trends flip now. Finally, we're seeing Bitcoin dominance getting to a point. Finally, we're seeing others dominance getting to a point where it's close to a breakout, to a proper breakout, a breakout since 2022. That it can't be something small when you're looking at a trend for so long. A breakout should be pretty significant. So I know people's been feeling it. I know people's exhausted. People are tired. However,
Yeah.
I do think this is coming to a conclusion which inevitably will play in our favor.
100%. Yeah. Thanks. You said that better than I could. Are there
Oh,
any
I don't know.
final things you wanted to share, or if people had questions in the chat? We took much longer than I
Maybe
expected.
questions. Yeah, sorry, and like there's heaps of macro micro data I want to share, but I'll do that at some other point. It's already in almost 2 hours, I think we're going on. Yeah, so
Yeah. My bad if it's super late for you.
no, not at
Okay.
all. It's just I lose myself in these things, man. I want to show sometimes and explain so much things in a certain sense that I don't even find my words. I tried to pull up a few charts as you can see on my screen, but there's so much on my Twitter that if I go through my Twitter feed now, I'll see so many charts that I even forgot about. I'll be like, oh shit, that was actually pretty good. But anyway,
I think you shared a lot of good information, like from like a top down view, right? Starting with the macro, the things you're paying attention to. Like, I think anyone who's here learned a lot and probably has some sense of conviction now. You know, I'm sure most people are already following you, but like it's easy. It's so easy for people to get distracted by what everyone else is saying online. So it's helpful to have
yes,
a voice out there that is confident but has good reasons to be, right? Nothing's
No,
ever
thanks,
certain,
and I
but
appreciate that. Yeah, look, don't mistake my confidence with me being cocky or something. I'm
oh
not at
yeah,
all. Like I know I can be wrong as well, and I can make mistakes as well. You know, it's just I obviously have conviction in the things I see and believe in until
for sure.
proven otherwise. You know, that's all it is, and I'll always remain humble in every sense of the word. Like that's not the way I've been brought up. You know, so yeah, don't.
Oh yeah,
That's
we
one thing
don't.
about me.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone interprets you being cocky or anything. I
Yeah.
think it's conviction based on the stuff you're showing us.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's
Somebody,
obviously still supports and resistances, you know. That's also
yeah,
something that people need to understand. Always bearish at resistance, always bullish at support. Just keep it simple. But there's obviously a high time frame view, and there's a short time frame view, and a medium time frame view. You know, and if the high time frame view is bullish, then the main trend is basically bullish. You know, just understand that concept from my side. Yeah.
for
Anyway,
sure.
and is there any questions from?
One person had a troll question: is Rick evolving into AI Rick? No, I don't. Somebody said you're in control of the matrix. Yeah, maybe. Master was asking if we can see the Bitcoin against software correlation. I think he's referring to the semiconductor index. Or
No, it's not semis. That's
oh,
something else. I think it's Ivy. Something.
oh yeah, that's
What was
hardware.
it? I don't know what it is now.
It's okay. Master, what did you
Can he
mean?
can he tell us? I think it's an index, software index. I don't know what the software index is now.
Yeah, no worries. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of talk about software getting destroyed by AI, and
I've got one answer for that. I don't even have to pull it up. If you go look at any stock-based asset class, anyone, you'll find that Bitcoin's correlated to them regardless, but you'll find stocks more correlated to it. Just look back more. So if people see something correlating with Bitcoin from 2022 or 2023, go look if it's correlated since 2017 or 2012 or whatever. You'll find it's not likely the case. The directional base is still the same. Again, because Bitcoin is correlated with stocks in general. So people might see more of a correlation with software now, but that will probably change when certain resistances are broken. Just so you guys know.
yeah, that makes sense. Somebody else is asking. He says, "So I understand we're expecting a strong alt season ahead? Question mark. A legitimate alt season."
Yeah. Yep, I am. I am expecting that. This other dominance chart that we talked about. So you see this chart. I'm just gonna remove this indicator of mine, and you can see this trend we talked about. Just to talk about it real quick again. So I'm expecting this to break out, and when this breaks out, then I believe this is a trend that's running from 2022, and this trend will break out. So when this trend breaks out, then I'm expecting a massive alt season. Yes.
Are you expecting it to be like broad participation? So most alts just ripping?
I'm expecting DeFi to take a lot of it, coincidentally. I'm expecting DeFi to take a lot because of Ethereum. Because Ethereum looks so bullish to me
I see.
at this point in time, I do believe, I believe the OG coins essentially is going to take a lot of credit this time again.
Makes
So
sense.
there might be new coins, but I think a lot of the older coins, like coins like VeChain, Engine, coins like Litecoin, coins like Ripple, coins, the older coins.
Yeah.
I think the older coins are going to take a lot of the share, and I do think DeFi in general is going to take a lot.
For sure. Older coins that maybe didn't participate. You know, I always avoided the prior cycle winners. Like in a lot of the 2017 cycle winners definitely underperformed in 2021. And then it's the same this time around. It seems like the cycle winners in 2021, like Cardano and Dogecoin might not do as well.
Yeah, maybe, but I believe a lot of those will, but I do believe DeFi might take a little bit more of the share.
See. Gotcha. Let's see what other questions. Maybe like one or two more.
Yep.
Oh, somebody was asking if you could explain why you specifically look at 26-day analysis.
Okay, so I don't give this away, or I haven't in the past. I don't care anymore, really. Okay. But you have three time frames on Bitcoin. So if you go, so something that people need to understand from my analysis, I look for time trends. So I look for the trends on specific time frames. That's one big light bulb moment in my past. Another light bulb moment was divergences, knowing that the divergence is a function of an impulse. So you'll find smaller divergences in this impulse, for example. You'll find smaller divergences in this impulse, for example. And then you'll find a bigger divergence, let's say, in this, that's part of an impulse, until the impulse is done. Then you get your correction. Okay. I know we didn't talk about that now, but that was also a big light bulb moment for me. So the one light bulb moment for me, or figuring out the way I do my analysis, and a lot in how my, if you will, edge on Twitter is looking for time trends. So if you look at the 5-day, you have a running trend, right? Or you had one. I don't think it also didn't top out yet. So same thing. So if you look at the RSI here on the bottom, I'm just going to get rid of a few things quickly. All right. So if you look at this, all right, that's your 5-day. You won't find that again until the 22nd day. All right. The 22-day. You'll probably find the same with the bottoms. All right. Not all time frames will be equal. Okay. And then you will find it on the 26th day. So a lot of people you've seen, and no one would have shared this, or no one has known this, because I haven't talked about it apart from on my streams and in Five's Discord channel. However, let's just go not to Bitstamp so we can see the full history. So if you look at the 26th day, right, you'll get perfect touches instead of minor touches like on, let's say, the monthly. So we had the 5-day, we had the 22-day, and you had the 26th-day, right? And then if you go like a lot of people, because when I share this, I put the days off. So I don't share the days. And a lot of people keep thinking that I'm sharing the monthly because it's so close. But the monthly is just, if you do compare the trends to the 26th-day, is shit. All right, so not great. All right, so that's the reason you've got 3 time trends that's running on Bitcoin, which is pretty important. You do have different indicators, like how I got hesitant again on the top one in early October is also different oscillators that I use. I don't share this easy with people, so sorry. I'm giving a little bit away now on this stream.
You don't have to, Rickus. Don't feel
That's all right.
But I
don't feel pressured at all.
Okay.
It's all right, man. I do this because I like it. So in the 2 weekly, I saw this on a specific indicator that I use. You see how this is more reactive than the RSI? So you had a top there.
Yeah.
And that's how I knew we were also topping out. Now, obviously, you had your bearish divergence. You have your bearish divergence, right? And that's why I call this my complacency top. Because look how far momentum was down. And this is also the reason why I believe we bottoming out much quicker. Because people expect this area here to be this, whereas it's actually started all the way from back there. And that's why when you look at altcoins itself, right, that's when you will see, okay, that's not altcoins essentially, it's by chance, but you'll see altcoins have made a higher low. Sorry, just trying to see that. So Bitcoin might have made a high, but not altcoins, right? And majority of things didn't, and momentum shows you that. Now, because of that, it's already resetting now. So you're feeling the pain from this bearish divergence. That's coming to an end now. No matter what people think about what's going to happen, right? What did we talk about in this stream? You got your oscillations. When you get your trend touches, your oscillation is most likely done. So you're already getting that touch. Just as if you had that touch at the top with this, You're getting it at the bottom. Now, this isn't specific oscillator that's more reactive than RSI, right? But it's not better than RSI. Trust me, it's not better, but it's more reactive. So you get your point from 0 to 1 quicker, and because of that, the 2-week time frame showed a top. But if you go to the RSI, it was close, right? But it wasn't quite there, unless you took the 2017 as a little bit of a deviation, and you missed that out. But if you do pull the top trend in, you kind of miss it, right? With those two tops on 2 weeks, but you'll find it on the 26th day, and you'll find it on the 22nd day, and then you'll find it on the 5 day. Now, if all these time frames line up, if every one of them shows you a top, then that will be a top.
Gotcha. Long ways away.
All right.
Well, thanks.
Okay.
Thanks for the alpha, Rickus. Appreciate you sharing the secrets.
No, good.
And
like the divergence is a pretty big one. If people really go sit back and think about it, and no one taught me this. This is a lot of mistakes, a lot of staring at charts, man. If you realize that divergence is a function of an impulse, and there might be people that disagrees with me, because like I said, this is something I self-taught myself. But if you realize divergence is part of an impulse, then so many things clicks. So if you go look at smaller time frames, you'll find smaller divergences. It's truly something that made a big difference in how I view things. So just think about that in a sense. So like, for example, just to show you guys, so you see how there's divergence there,
Yep.
but you see how it continued up until you find it on a higher time frame. So until your divergence comes in a higher time frame, then that impulse on that specific time frame is most likely done. That's not a perfect example now, but essentially it's what you want to look for to a certain degree. Anyway, yep, time trends and divergence is pretty big in my system.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think they depending on what indicator you're using. I'm sure you use the ones that you historically have found work the best. But yeah, divergence. If you just use that with strong indicators, I think you'd have pretty good odds of success.
Pretty good hit. Yeah, I believe so too, man. Like you're saying, it doesn't have to be an indicator even. Like if you compare, like we just said Bitcoin over gold or some asset class, and you find, or the stock market, for example, or let's say small caps. If you find small caps diverging from large caps, it's a warning sign. It's like, okay, watch me. You know, it's
for sure. It just shows like capital's rotating, like taking up that liquidity, and
exactly.
Once it dries up, expansion. So,
yeah.
Sweet. I'm gonna read the chat one last time, but I think we're good on questions. Thank you so much, Rickus, for spending.
No, thank you. And if there's anything else you want to mention, man, go ahead. I'm all ears. I'm not tired yet. If you want to talk,
I need to use the restroom real quick, but I'll talk for a little bit. I'll be right back. It's gonna be like 1 minute. I'm gonna pee though. I drank too much coffee.
No.
You can take over show some things.
No worries.
1 sec. All right, I'll be right back.
Yeah, all right. No, all good. I'll see if I can pull up something we haven't discussed while he runs to the toilet real quick. I know a lot of people want to hear about altcoins, so but we did touch base on most of it. For me, it's just shocking how this pattern is so similar. If you really look at it, and it's too hard for me to ignore. I feel like too many people are ignoring it just because they gave up on it, And I think that was all purposely so. I think it's psychologically part of this give up before it inevitably goes up, And people are already shocked. You've got coins that did 300% in this week. I don't know what coins they were. I don't really care, but there was a few coins that did it, So people are already seeing some remnants of it, and they're like, "Oh, why is this happening? This is supposed to be a bear market," Already starting to question it and doubting their own major leg down thesis, And then why IWM is making new highs. Again, this Bitcoin over ETH. The pattern is so similar. Things I wanted to actually share is more macro data. but for that I need to go into my desktop and stuff, and I don't want to give away passwords and stuff. I don't know how clever some of you guys are out there, you always don't want to lose a password or two. So I think I'm going to keep that away from the stream for another day when I actually have saved the charts. This one I shared though. We talked about Litecoin having a similar pattern now, and Bitcoin, because when this broke out, I tweeted about it. I think it was the 6th of April. I tweeted about this, the pop, and the trend flipped from stocks and Bitcoin. And like I explained earlier, when the trend from all-time highs flip, then you can kind of expect that all-time highs to be tested. So that happened with stocks real quick, as we saw, and Bitcoin obviously did a W pattern that's continuing up, and that is IWM obviously made new highs, and I believe Bitcoin will inevitably do the same. I could be wrong, but that's what I believe.
For sure. All right, I'm back.
Sweet.
I'll share my screen.
All right.
And honestly, in terms of technical analysis, the only thing I've really been paying attention to, in one sec, you should be able to see my screen. Just because you were showing how, and I showed this to you, but not to the live stream. But a lot of people are very bullish on ETH, and it does look pretty good. And like ETH Bitcoin looks good. ETH USD looks pretty good. That fractal you showed looks pretty accurate. But LTC ETH looks really bullish to me. Because we had a clear 5-wave move down over realistically like 7-8 years, and then we had this larger, what looks like to me, inverse head and shoulders pattern, and each temporary bottom or local bottom had a nested inverse head and shoulders within it, and it looks like we're forming like to me, if this plays out, the final right shoulder, both on the nested smaller inverse head and shoulders and on the larger time frame one. And it's also after we broke out of this long-term, 5-6 year downtrend, retested it multiple times. And then we're showing a lot of bullish divergence, right? Like on CMF, we haven't seen this fast of a rise, except for really here, like kind of before we had this near vertical rally in 2022. But this is much steeper and much more persistent. I know there's not a ton of trading volume on these pairs, but at least it shows capital rotation into Litecoin from ETH, even if the volume's not that high. So I think if we do break out here on the lower time frames, this and the higher time frames, that we're going to see new, at least break this horizontal resistance where this previous high was, and honestly see a long-term trend reversal of Litecoin against Ethereum, for the duration of the cycle. That's my opinion, and it's partially based on this fundamental idea. I know last cycle in 2021, really what you saw were ETH competitors. ETH had 90+% share of the proof of stake market, right? The smart contract stuff. And then you saw coins like Cardano, these other smart contract platforms rally massively from very low market cap dominance versus ETH. And what I think, or what my thesis was from the beginning of the cycle, is that you'd see competitive proof of work networks take some of Bitcoin's market share. So instead of looking at Bitcoin dominance against all altcoins, I've been looking at Bitcoin dominance against what it actually competes with, other proof of work networks. And it has 98% price dominance, but only 65, 70%, monetary market share dominance. And I think that dominance will go down further, quite dramatically on the monetary share side, and speculation should align with that future reality. And I think there's a real decent shot of the narrative changing quite dramatically. So it aligns, my fundamental and macro view aligns kind of with this chart. A lot of these pair charts actually, like an ADA was a 21 cycle winner, had huge performance, and we spent a massive amount of time just going sideways against Cardano since 2021. So it's been 5+ years. Finally broke out here, and it does not, like, I would not hold Cardano over Litecoin, just based on a technical perspective, not even fundamental. But it looks this way on so many. Just waiting for expansion, extreme volatility, compression. I know almost nobody looks at Litecoin pair charts, but even against CRV, right, it's something that's like really popular on X, I think because of Credible and some others. I don't know, this chart just looks strong. It looks like a 5-wave move higher, like a quick correction, and I don't know, who knows? That's a really small altcoin. It can pump massively, but I think all these Litecoin pair charts look bullish to me. Like Litecoin against Solana, it's the same thing. Long-term basing structure just broke out. It's retesting, at least on the weekly time frame, where it just broke out. And I think it's bullish, yeah. No, yeah, for sure. Yeah, go check out the charts. Don't take my word for it. But even on RSI, right? Like you've had, we had major bullish divergence in RSI for quite a while on the monthly time frame, on the weekly time frame. And I think people just gave up on it, even though it's the strongest from like a fundamental perspective. It's like an order of magnitude ahead of every other proof of work chain in terms of monetary demand. So it should just consolidate and expand. And at some point, I think that's, to me, that's like the biggest opportunity in market is what's the dominant narrative? How does it break? When does it fracture? And I think the conditions are present that, there's a decent chance. It really depends on the speed and magnitude of this Bitcoin rally, in my opinion. But if it is vertical, like Neighbors, or however you pronounce his name's chart, if we see something like this, the dominoes will fall, in my opinion. And I think the odds of Litecoin making a massive move, if this scenario plays out, or even something close to it, are extremely high. Like on the fundamental side too, there's a lot of interest in this smart contract platform for Litecoin that just got released. So you could see like retail hype around that. It did do quite a few transactions, like 200,000 over the last 24 hours or something. So there's a lot of interest, and there's just a lot of like potential narrative catalysts that I see that can push this thing, whereas the market perceives it as, dead. I think people might look at it as a payments network, or think nobody uses it. Like there's no awareness of what's actually happening on the fundamental side and how close it is to Bitcoin when price is massively diverged. But yeah, that's all I wanted to really show. But yeah, my TA is not anywhere close to yours, but yeah, for sure. Well, Mm.
When dominance charts, but I wanted to go specifically into altcoins. So as soon as the building blocks gets built, then I reckon we should revisit it.
Okay, yeah, perfect. They just messaged me. They said they couldn't hear you for a sec. I don't know what happened, but I think they can now. But yeah, let's do that.
Oh, okay.
I think it was just when I started sharing my screen. But yeah, let's do that. Once these things start playing out, whenever that happens, I'll message you. I'll be live.
Yeah.
This project I've worked on
Sweet.
for 2 years finally is going to be done. So I'll be here all day, every day, practically.
No
so
worries.
whenever it starts
All right.
happening, I'll reach out to you, or you can reach out to me, whatever works for you.
All right. No, perfect, man.
But
And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it tonight as well. And I hope everyone else did.
yeah, no, I always enjoy talking about this stuff. There's very few people. I know we have different perspectives and different ways of viewing the market, but very few people you can talk in depth with about this stuff. So I appreciate your time, and honestly, thanks for coming here. I know I don't even have that big of a following or that much, that many people here, but I appreciate it. Like you could have gone on
No, and
much
I
bigger
appreciate
shows.
you, man. Like honestly, I do. It doesn't matter how many followers you have. The previous chat we had like was really I enjoyed it, man. I enjoy sometimes I do some streams on five tradings Discord group, and which I'm part of. Then there's very few people that join in because I'm basically I always do it on last notice, man. I'm very bad with it, so I'm like a minute before I do it, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go on. And then there's only like a few people. Then I enjoy it, man, because I enjoy talking to, and no matter how many people are there, like I enjoy talking about the markets. It's something we all obviously have a passion in. That's why we're here, and
Yep.
we obviously try and make money. But for me, I appreciate you doing the effort in setting it all up. I'm very bad. Like I might be good with TradingView, but I'm very bad with setting up streams and mics and videos and all this kind of stuff. So I appreciate everyone that's hosting. And then yeah, man, like if I can give a shout out to you, like the other day when I meant it, like I appreciate your intellect about the markets. Like you're always respectful and humble. You always give me a good platform to talk and to say everything I want to say. Even if I ramble on for hours, you leave me to it, and then then you say what you want to say. I've done a couple of previous streams in the past with people that I eventually had a kind of a fallout with, man, because they were just you just said we have different perspectives sometimes and views, right? You still respect it, no matter how I say it. Whereas I had like chats with certain people, and then they fully agree with me when it suits them, but then when it doesn't, then it's shortly after they kind of just turn sour, man, and kind of turns out weird. So
Yeah,
it's like
odd.
I appreciate people like you.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, thanks so much for that shout out on X. I think my following went up like the most that it has in a year. So I appreciate that.
No, that's
That's-
just a pleasure, man.
Thanks so much. I'm curious what you think about this stream. It should go live in like a week, so maybe check it out and then let me know when the next time.
Yeah,
come on
look, I
this.
think I can take a lot of advice from people out there that maybe does it more. Like because I don't do it a lot, and because I want to say so much, I feel like it feels to me like I say a whole lot of nothing. But so for me, I feel like if I can maybe compress what I'm trying to say a little bit more, like more in a shorter way, but still hits the same, I think I'll like to do that to a certain degree, unless people enjoy me rambling on. But I do feel like I ramble on a little bit too much about something that I want to try and get out there. So it's maybe just because of preparation, I guess. Maybe I should just prepare.
Well,
Better.
I think it's just like because you've probably practiced a bit with Five's Discord group, but
Yeah.
honestly, I don't perceive it that way, and I don't think the audience does. I think it's just you in your head because you know what you want to say, and sometimes
Yeah.
when you want to go to say it, it's not exactly how you envision
Yeah.
saying it. But it comes off as authentic to me because it's like you're thinking in real time, and I think I appreciate that. So I don't know.
All right,
I don't
man.
see any problems. Like you, compared
Okay.
to 90% of people that come on here, 99, I think you do much better. You clearly have
All
a
right.
lot of information to share, and I don't feel like you're repeating yourself or like
All right.
fumbling
No,
around.
perfect. Thanks, man. Appreciate it,
Yeah.
and appreciate everyone that listened in, man.
Yeah. Well, good luck. What time is it there right now?
It's 11:20, man, but I
Okay.
might hop onto Call of Duty now. So just
Okay. All right. Good luck with your Call of Duty games, and yeah, man.
no,
If you have
good.
to work or whatever tomorrow, I don't know. It's Is it
Nah,
Monday?
it's Sunday tomorrow at least. So all
Oh
good.
yeah, it's
Mowing
Saturday.
lawn.
Dude, I don't even know what day it is anymore. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your weekend,
You too,
and
and you too. Enjoy your weekend.
We'll talk soon, Rickus.
Thanks, man, and everyone else out there as well. Go enjoy the weekend.
All right. See ya.
Catch you, mate.
Bye. All right, guys. Thanks to Rickus for coming on here. I'm sure all of you guys follow him, but if you don't, it's at ChronoChartist on X. Oh, I should have asked him about his Discord group. I don't think he gets paid for it or anything, but I should have asked him. I think they have a Discord group that is free, I'm pretty sure. So I'll just share that. Yeah, if you go... Wait. Maybe it's not here. Oh. No. Honestly, I don't know. I think I might be in it. Or maybe can post it. Or I should ask it. Maybe it's like private. Oh well. Alright guys. Master. Thanks for showing up early in the morning. Everyone that came on. What the heck? I know it's been a while. I've been just grinding, but hopefully by the end of this week, like Friday, I'll be live. Been working on this project for like 2 years or longer, so I'm curious to what you guys all will think. So make sure to subscribe so you can get a notification when this finally goes live. But the next time I go live, it'll be in a totally different environment. Oh, shout out the books, bro. Okay. All right, so the like first ever Litecoin books, if you guys are interested in reading some alternative views to Bitcoin only, there's this book called The Other Bitcoin. Master wrote it that he just released. It's super cheap. You can get it for $7.77. And then there's mine, the second Bitcoin. I'd say Masters is better for... They're both different perspectives. Masters probably more digestible. Mine is a little more intense with technical and framework-based reading. So why not just get both of them if you can? Oh, $7.77 until Sunday. So get it while it's on sale. $7. It's like buying a coffee. Hopefully we can get a rally out of here on these pairs. I mean, I didn't show this one, but LTC Doge, Even though I really don't like fractals that much, but just this one specific fractal has played out so many times in Bitcoin price history that I've seen repeat with high success that it's hard for me to ignore. It's basically what's happening on LTC Doge. Like all the pair charts look ready. To me, it's been a long consolidation, but finally when we get relative strength and a breakout here, especially when Litecoin's such a small market cap asset compared to a lot of these, it can move pretty quickly. I've showed this like a million times. So if I'd say that if the final move in Bitcoin is as extreme as I think is possible or even likely, even this XRP fractal from 2017 mirrors what I think can happen for Litecoin. Right, the LTC ETH chart, if that plays out with this nested inverse head and shoulders, you know, I mean, there's just a lot of confluence here. But all right, guys, I'm going to go log off now. I've got to go grind this out to be able to launch on Friday, but thanks again for everyone who came. Thanks, Batistuta. Thank you for coming. Appreciate you. And thanks, 5.0 Trading. Thanks for being in here. I'll see you guys all pretty soon. And then I won't be leaving for a while. All right, guys. Have a good Saturday. Peace out.